Hey, Diana, did you know teaching your team accountability is easy?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast, the podcast for lawyers and law firm leaders about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I'm your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside my number one, my COO, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, what's up?
Not much, Mark. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. First new podcast of the year, 2026.
Yep.
My question to you is, what are we going to do today to get us an explicit rating on this particular podcast?
Please don't, Mark.
So I've noticed here that I have a coffee cup that has the word damn on it. And because we are being videotaped, that my marketing director put a little sticky over the word damn because she was afraid that would get us an explicit rating.
So you just thought you would say the word multiple times.
Well, it didn't work
did?
because, one of the things, the glue on these little sticky notes won't hold up to the heat, and they've already melted off. So
it's not your fault.
I, for the life of me, can't figure out how the word damn, which refers to a structure that holds back water, gets you an explicit rating.
Is that how you were using it?
I don't know, but
it's
I tell you what,
not the way it's
we will
on
figure out a way to drop an F-bomb into
Please
this
don't.
podcast sooner or later. But it has to be at the right time. It has to be at the appropriate time. What the hell are we talking about today besides explicit rating?
Accountability, which does tend to make us both say explicit words.
It does make us say bad words. Really bad words.
We're talking about accountability in the framework of the book, How Leaders Can Inspire Accountability, 3 Habits That Make or Break Leaders and Elevate Organizational Performance by Michael Timms. Now, that's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. Now, why did you pick this book?
Our producer picked this one for us. I don't know what she's trying to tell us when she picked this book.
Oh, man.
Our producer picked it. It did make the Harvard Business Review list of top 2025 books.
Hoity-toity. A
Very
hoity-toity book.
hoity-toity. I'm going to choose to believe that that's why she gave it to us to do, rather than she's trying to tell us something about our approach to accountability.
Yeah.
But it was apparently made the top 10, maybe number 8 or so. So it was a good read. I actually did read it over my Christmas quote unquote break, but I did read it, and it's a good, it was an easy enough read for Christmas break.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that Timms, the author, mentions from the get-go is that it's really hard to create a culture of accountability because most organizations don't even have a clear definition of what accountability is, which of course made me think about the way you approach your core values with new employees, Mark. So can you just remind us again, what do you do with new employees and how you do your core values, the way you approach each of them?
So I think this is the one non-delegable duty that I have within the firm, which is every new employee, regardless of whether they're at attorney level or if they're at a summer law clerk, it doesn't matter. Everybody from top to bottom, I bring them in for what I call the core values speech or presentation. And I go over with them our 6 established core values. And it takes a while. It used to take me an hour and a half to do this because I have a whole list of examples of our core value. So I define the core value, and then I give them a list of, these are some examples of what this core value looks like in action. And then I give them the counter, which I give them a list of examples that I have seen in the past where the core values have been ignored or people are acting counter to those particular core values. So I take this very seriously. And now I will say that over time I have shortened it a little bit because I've figured people getting a little bit bleary-eyed and not following. So I've now shortened it to about 35 to 40 minutes. But I have them sign off on this as well. So they have to, it's basically a written contract that they have with me that they will agree to abide by my core values while they are employee of the firm. Like I said, this is a benevolent dictatorship. It is not a democracy.
Well, and I do like that because it was very clear to me from the beginning what accountability meant or what integrity meant. And so these are all words like teamwork and engagement and strategy and synergy that,
I hate the word synergy. It is such a bullshit word. Oh, there we go. I got one in. So
Marcus.
Yes.
Just use Marcus, which is not your
every
real
time
name.
I'm in trouble, she goes with the Marcus. Okay, I get it.
That was an inherited thing that I got from someone else here. So, one of the things, though, that it was very clear to me from the get-go what those words meant when I became an MWA employee, which is why I like the way that you approach it. Timms, the author, says that accountability is the mechanism by which goals are consistently translated into desired results. In case that gives you an idea of how the book reads.
From A to B to C. How about that?
Exactly. Accountability, results. That's exactly what we're talking about. And, he talked very early on in the book about the difference between accountability and engagement, which I thought was really fascinating because, as you know, Mark, our EOS 5-year, well, actually all of our plan has engagement as one of its metrics that we're trying to achieve. We actually, and actually, that's a good reminder, I need to do the engagement survey. Every year at the firm, we do an engagement survey based on the Gallup's 12 questions to gauge how we're doing on engagement.
And why do we care about engagement?
And that's a great question. So in theory, when you have engaged employees, you have more proactive, customer service-driven employees. By virtue of being engaged, you're not burned out, so therefore you're delivering more quality work.
They care. They care about the outcome if they're engaged.
But what Timms, the author, found out was that actually, and this is a quote from the book, numerous studies have shown that organizations fully achieve their goals only about 30 to 50% of the time. That's because they're using bad strategies, not because they're using bad strategies, but because of their failure to consistently execute on their strategies. So he's basically saying that this whole idea that just because you have an engaged workforce, therefore you will have all these great results, those two things actually don't align.
Preach it, sister. Preach it. I've been saying this for years.
Really? Okay. Well, I don't know. I kind of thought with the more engaged workforce we would have, the more results-focused workforce we would have. But Timms says that the missing piece, the way that I read the book, the missing piece is accountability.
Right.
If you have an accountable workforce, then obviously they're going to be more focused on the results. And he gave examples of with firms that are companies where you hear things like, "That's not my problem." Your favorite thing. Yeah. That's a trigger thing for Mark.
Now, this is, I end all of my core value presentations to my new employees with that particular little tidbit, which is if I ever hear anybody in my firm say, "That's not my job," I will frickin' blow a gasket. I've just that is, I will never draw a line and say that's grounds for termination, but you will see my wrath. You will, it is a trigger. I don't care. I don't care what you are, who you are in the firm. If there's a piece of paper on the floor that you could pick up, reach down and pick up that damn piece of paper. I don't care if it's not your job. Just do, that's just the simplest example I can give, but God, it just pisses me off when I see that. So.
And that's an example of things that are said in companies with low accountability. Things that like providing excuses, pointing fingers, passing the buck, and defensiveness. These are all examples of behaviors where there's low accountability in your firm. So if this sounds like you, please keep listening, because I do think some of the strategies or some of the habits that Timms mentions are beneficial, and I think we're going to talk about, actually I know we're going to talk about, because this was my outline, Mark.
Of course it is, your outline.
We're going to talk about some of the ways that this has presented itself on our leadership team and in our firm. So continue to listen, because we're going to talk about the book and Timms, in the framework of Timms's 3 habits to hopefully increase our desired results in our firm. And to use Timms's phrase, accountability is personal and organizational leverage. Which I'm like, oh, I like leverage.
I love the word leverage.
I like leverage. I want more leverage.
I want leverage because leverage means more money.
Well, exactly.
But I'm just saying, when I use the word leverage, I'm always talking about how are you going to make some more money.
Exactly. So
just good.
Tim says you can do that with personal accountability, and we're going to discuss that today.
All right. We'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
So, Marc, we're going to talk about Tim's 3 habits of personal accountability, which he says is the antidote for low accountability and the formula for achieving better results. So I'm going to introduce the 3 habits. Habit 1, don't blame. Habit 2, look in the mirror. And habit 3, engineer the solution. So we'll start with the first one.
All right.
Habit 1 is to don't blame, because blame kills accountability.
Correct. I have seen this from time to time, and we've had these discussions in our level 10 meetings. You know, it's two sides of the coin. Number one is don't blame but the other side of that coin is don't be defensive when issues are raised. And I see both of those. I see blame, and then I see people being defensive. And I think the better methodology, if we just raise the issue, there is a problem. Here's the issue. Okay. And then the person that might be the pointed target to that problem, you know, needs to accept, all right, let's solve the problem. Let's don't be defensive about it. Don't make excuses. Because number one, we're not blaming you. Blaming causes people to create excuses, as opposed to simply raising that we have an issue that we need to solve. Therefore, let's work together to come up with a solution.
Exactly. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the excuses thing, because I found that part, it was like 1 sentence. It was 2 sentences. It was very, it was eye-opening for me. And we're going to talk about that in habit 2, I believe. But, you know, Tim says that blame is like a virus because it multiplies and spreads quickly, harming the host and others who become infected by it. He talks about blame in like terms of 3 cycles: the cycle of inaction, ignorance, and the cycle of infighting. You know, what I would take away from habit 1 is, you know, we talk about the don'ts, like how, you know, you were talking about with your core values. This is what it looks like, and this is what it doesn't look like. You know, his habit is don't blame. The counter to that would be, to me, do take ownership. And, you know, we talked a lot about extreme ownership, and that was episode 61, Mark.
Yes, it was.
Episode 61.
I knew that, not.
So I would say that if you're going to say, Tim's, don't blame, I would also counter and say, do take ownership of what the issue is or your part in it. You know, one of the things that I've heard, not just on this leadership team or this firm, but throughout my career is, you know, I didn't make this decision, so why do I need to be held accountable for it? Or why do I need to fix it? Why am I, you know, why is my name on the grievance? Why am I dealing with
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
Why am I the one?
Yep.
Why do I get the grievance when I never even was involved in the case?
Yeah, you didn't try the case, sir.
I have anything to do with it.
Unfortunately, part of being named partner
I've signed up to take the bullets.
You take up the bullets.
I take up the bullets.
But I also think that that's also, you know, part of the EOS culture training. I'm not sure what it would say, is that one of the very first things that they taught us in our first meeting was, whatever you 7 decide as a leadership team, that is the decision that every one of you made when you leave the room. Do you remember that discussion, Mark?
Now you put me on the spot, because no, I do not.
I like that.
Oh, I know. Shit. Sorry.
Oh, no.
There we
did
go.
That on purpose. You did that to get back at me. So,
I did, didn't
you know,
I?
one of the things that EOS talks about is that, you know, to build trust on the leadership team, right? There's obviously going to be healthy discussion, hopefully healthy conflict, and the leadership team, as we make a decision that we're going to then take outside of that room. And it's one unanimous decision when we leave the room. It can't be presented to the firm. One of the things that I remember that was the work from home, or the hybrid, or the remote, whatever we called it when we called everybody back, we all made a decision as a leadership team that if you were hybrid, it was this, right? X number of days in office, and you did or did not get an assigned cubicle. If you were remote, then this is what happened, and this is what it looked like. And there was a lot of very strong opinions about those things. But when we left the room, you didn't know how I felt about it or how you felt about it. You knew what the leadership team made, what decision the leadership team made. And for me, that's what I think about when it's not taking blame. It's like, hey guys, I really pushed for you guys to be remote.
Right. Yeah. Don't come in and backstab a decision saying, well, that wasn't really what I didn't agree to, but I got outvoted. Every time you say I got outvoted, you're backstabbing the decision that the group made.
Exactly.
No,
So
if you accept responsibility and accept the leadership position of being part of the group, when the group makes the decision, whether or not you agree with it or not, you have to support that decision.
And I think that's exactly, that was to me, this kind of habit one of not blaming, and Tim's does talk about, like, as mentioned earlier, the cycle of inaction and how blame can move employees from a position of emotional safety to not taking action. So some of these things, like when employees don't take action or when they try to hide issues or when you get office politics, these are the cycles that Tim's is talking about. And you're probably seeing a very low accountability culture there.
So one of the problems that I see that come out of that, this is another thing I preach when I do my core values presentation, is that we expect people to make mistakes. But we're not going to blame you for those mistakes. We're not going to punish you for those mistakes. Because what happens if you create that culture of blame and punishment, then people bury their mistakes.
Exactly.
And that's the worst thing that can happen. It is much better, and I preached on this, is, if you make a mistake, it's fine. We expect you to make mistakes. Make sure you bring it to your supervisor and we will figure out how to fix it. Again, we're not doing brain surgery here. There's probably no mistake that we can't fix, absent maybe blowing a statute, that's a systemic problem more than anything, if that ever happened. We can fix it. Mm-hmm. So just let us know, we'll fix it, and we'll use it as a learning opportunity, and we'll move on, okay? And I preach that specifically, and I give some very specific examples of some very big mistakes that people have made, and they've come to me, and we fixed it, and they're still with me today after all these years. Nobody got fired over it. We use it as a learning as a learning tool, as a way to improve our processes, to maybe revamp our processes so that didn't happen again. But when you create the blame game, you invariably create an atmosphere where people start to hide their mistakes. And that is just so dangerous.
Very toxic. And I think that sums up habit one, don't blame, because blame kills accountability perfectly, Mark. So we're going to move on to habit two. Looking in the mirror by acknowledging your part in the problem. So,
the hard part, looking in the
mirror,
that damn mirror.
Yeah. So, Mark, please stop getting us an explicit rating. I'm just we're going to cut this from the.
It's killing you.
It's killing me.
I'm just telling you, our ratings go up every time we get an explicit rating.
So, I
still can't understand how the word damn gives you an explicit rating.
Tim's starts with talking about the Dunning-Kruger effect. I think I said that correct. Do you know what that one is?
Maybe.
So basically, the people that they're worst at something tend to overestimate their ability the most and think they're actually basically better than they really are at it. So that's really Tim's whole idea, is that basically we're not self-aware. So Mark.
Yes.
Do you think you're self-aware?
No.
Really?
It depends on what day you ask me. Okay.
Obviously, but more often than not, 80-20.
Okay. I think I'm pretty self-aware because I am fairly, what's the word? Self-deprecatory. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the word right, but you know what I'm talking about. I don't tend to have an ego and tend to think that I'm right all the time. I actually acknowledge that most of the time I'm probably wrong. That's I always said that's why I hire smart people, so they can correct my mistakes.
That a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I surround myself with very smart people to keep me on track.
So Tim says that
self-deprecation, that's the word I was looking for.
That is the word. So Tim says that basically we're not very self-aware because we just don't get enough feedback. quote, he says,
Lord, I get a lot of feedback. I get feedback from you people all the time. Mark, what the hell are you doing?
He says, quote, we come to conclusions based on a small sample size of data from an unreliable source. So, and actually he says that 95% of people believe that they're self-aware. So the fact that you said no, you're in that 5%, but 95% of people believe that they're self-aware, but only 10 to 15% really are.
I would say I'm painfully aware of my shortcomings. So I'm very self-aware that I have a lot of shortcomings.
Yeah. And this is important because Tim says that our self-awareness sets the upper limit for the skills that make us stronger team players, superior leaders, and better relationship builders. So basically, he's saying that if you're not very self-aware, it's going to limit your ability to move forward, or to move forward and upwards in leadership and management. And ironically, the higher you climb in the leadership, the less feedback you receive.
Oh, well,
So
yeah. Nobody
CEOs
wants to tell you, nobody's going to tell the king has no clothes.
Exactly. So the fact that you have, the fact that people tell you all the time that of all the things you did wrong, I guess is different than
Well,
most
I think because I
CEOs.
set that tone in my culture that I
You welcome the feedback.
do welcome the feedback.
And so,
I don't take it personally.
Mark, I actually looked up your EQ test. Do you remember taking this test?
Yes.
Do you
I remember you outscored me, and that pissed me off.
Yeah. But are we surprised?
Not really.
Well, on the EQ test, I absolutely did. But on the EQ test, one of the components is self-awareness. And actually, that was your highest component. Is that you're actually quite self-aware. In
Oh well,
relation to
here
all the
let me
other
just stick my nose up in the air and
There you
see
go.
how great I am.
Because on average, CEOs actually don't do very well. But according to the TTI test that we took, and I don't unfortunately know what TTI stands for, guys, but it's the testing module that Atticus uses, our coaching group. But self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your moods, emotions, and drives, as well as their effect on others. And so I think that that's really important when we're thinking about habit two, to look in the mirror. And you talked a lot about excuses earlier, but I think it's perfect in the way that Tim's references it, between the difference between explanations and excuses.
All right, now lay this one on me here because when you mentioned this, I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. We should make a sign and put that one on the wall.
I want to just wear it. Can I just put
Can we
it?
put it on a T-shirt?
You
Can put it on a T-shirt.
So this is what Tim says, listeners. The difference between an excuse and an explanation is how you intend to use it. If you think that providing a reason for poor results absolves you of accountability, then it's an excuse. If you use the reason for poor results as the starting point to find a solution you intend to implement, then it's an explanation.
I like it. How can we fit that on a T-shirt?
I know, but here's my aha moment. So, Mark, we're not
Yes.
going to name names here because we do protect the innocent.
No, we don't.
But I don't know if you remember, we were coming out of an EOS workday, which, as you know, listeners tend to be very tense for our leadership team because
Yes.
it's 8 to 9 hours of us just in one room talking about our problems,
Talking about our feelings.
and our problems, of which we apparently have many. And after one of those work days, one of our leadership team members approached another and said, "Hey, I heard what you said about me, XYZ, whatever that was. And I wanted to talk to you about that." And it was one-on-one, and they were just talking. But it was interpreted as defensiveness. Mm-hmm. And it was not interpreted the same because it became a discussion point in the leadership team about how that discussion evolved, what was the point of it. And if we had this framework, we would have been able to get past it. So, for example, say that the issue was, Mark, I'm upset with you for missing too many of our level 10 meetings. So that's our issue.
Busy. I'm important.
And if you think that providing a reason,
that was his excuse. That's
an excuse. But then if you were to say, "Hey, listen, I recognize that I'm missing a lot of meetings. How can I, these are the meetings, these are the reasons why I missed them. Which one do you think that I could have maybe moved around, or how could I have done better to attend?" Then Tim's says that's an explanation because you're using it as a starting point to find a solution. And I think if we had had this language, Mark, just to kind of recap, then do you see how the difference now is between an excuse and an explanation?
I understand, because an explanation seeks a solution,
Exactly.
whereas an excuse seeks absolvement.
Absolvement, and it kind of encourages that defensiveness behavior that you were speaking of.
I think we're
earlier.
getting closer to getting this to fit on a T-shirt.
What do I want to know what you would?
No, just absolvement versus a solution.
Okay.
So I'm just bearing it down to its most basic facts. One seeks absolvement, one seeks a solution.
And I think that's to wrap habit 2 up in a nice little bow. You can only seek absolvement if you're self-aware enough to realize it is needed, right? That we are all part of a team or a company or a firm or whatever. And to be able to be held accountable to something, you can't make excuses for that. So so step 1, seeking that person out one-on-one was great. Hey, let's talk about what I heard you bring up in the meeting. Explaining why you did it in terms of, okay, now everything's fine, right? Because I talked to you about why I did what I did. That's probably going to make things a little bit worse. Yeah. So moving on to habit 3, engineer the solution, fix processes, not people. And now I'm going to tell you, go ahead and admit that I struggled with habit 3 in terms of the framework for accountability because, Mark, EOS preaches right person, right seat. It's not necessary. So, but basically what Tim's says.
I think that's a little broad, though. Right person, right seat. Not everybody's the right person for the right seat every damn day because we all have our ups and our downs.
Yeah, but I also do think we think about 80-20. We need the 80-20.
Yeah,
right?
okay,
So,
all right. I like the framework. We can go with 80-20.
Are you the right person 80% of the time?
Yeah.
And so...
And I'm hell on wheels 20.
Yeah, yes, you are. Your percentages shift, sir. But also, true EOS says that GWC, to get it, want it, capacity for it has to be 100% or none. So, guys,
Another thing that I don't totally agree with. But
yeah, we've started in our EOS journey to
I've now put it at 90. I now use, when I do that, I use the criminal burden of proof, which is beyond a reasonable doubt. So I go with beyond a reasonable doubt, not 100%. So.
We are not pure EOS at this firm, so please recognize
I'm
listeners.
carving and shaving a lot of things off of EOS.
And that's what I think we're supposed to do. We're going to
Make it
graduate.
your own.
Yeah, you're going to graduate in April, so I think it's good that we're kind of making it your own, like you said. But what Tim says regarding habit 3, engineer the solution, fix processes, not people. He says changing other people is hard. Changing the process, the environment, or your own behavior is far easier because you have much more control over them. And that engineered solutions strike at the root of problems. I see this working for manufacturing facilities. I see this working for very large firms. Whereas in our size, maybe that's the best way to put it, in the work that we do, service, I don't know that engineering a solution works as well. But I do think he brings up a good point that engineers build fail-safes into their products to make it difficult for people to get the wrong results and make it easier for people to get the right results.
Yeah. Well, in engineering and in production, they use Six Sigma, which means you can only have X number of mistakes per million transactions or whatever the number is. That didn't really work in the service industry, I don't think. We screw things up every single day. I'm sure there's probably every phone call we're on, we could probably have done that phone call slightly better, but are we getting by? Are we surviving? Are we doing the best we can? A service industry is more art than science and certainly more art than engineering. So I think we have to kind of take that with a bit of grain of salt. So.
And I completely agree. I think one of the examples that Tim's brought up is exactly that, from an engineering facility or from a manufacturing facility, and how changing the location of a basket. I mean, it's all the lean stuff that we talk about as well. Changing the location of a basket on a line drastically increased their production because it was height-wise wrong for the majority of the people working the line. A lot harder to find those types of things in the service industry.
Yeah.
So, Mark, Tim's mentions 4 strategies that will help you engineer the solution, which is habit 3. So do you want to introduce those 4 strategies?
So the first one he said was make reality transparent. Now, I sort of equated this because we've been talking about scoreboards on this podcast forever, and we always talked about having a visible scoreboard so our people know whether they're winning or losing at whatever the task or the job that they're doing. I think this is really the same thing. Make reality transparent. He talked about things such as KPI dashboards, which is the same thing as the scoreboard that we've talked about. NPS scores, net promoter scores that we use with our clients to see if our clients are satisfied. But basically taking the feedback and allowing people to know whether they're winning or losing. Basically making their results transparent.
Yep, and one of the things about strategy 1 that Tim's talked about was the lessons learned debrief. In other books we've heard it called the after action review, the AAR. There's a lot of reference in this book, Mark. You would have liked it to, military. It reminded me of the absolute candor principle from the high trust leadership book we talked about. Don't have that episode number for you, unfortunately.
It was 37.
It was not. But also the after action review. So what are you doing after you've had either what I call a break in trust or a systems breakdown to discuss what happened and implementing those lessons learned into your normal procedures so that they don't happen again. I think that that's one of those things that is crucial in and I think that that's going to actually be one of my 2026 goals is trying to implement a version of an AAR. Stay tuned. All right, Mark. What was an after action review?
Okay,
that's the military term for
Okay,
it.
got it. Yeah.
I don't know what we're going to call it here. Mark, what's strategy 2 of habit 3?
So strategy 2 is clarify the critical steps. In any process, you have to map out the steps. As I like to say, we try to get together and we whiteboard the shit out of it. So, but basically, I like drawing a visual picture. Step 1, boom, line to step 2. Now we have a decision tree. I remember my old little symbols back from coding days, back when we used to code in college. The diamond was the decision tree. You had to make a decision. You go left, right, or center. But basically, clarifying what the critical steps in a process are. And also clarifying what a positive result looks like versus what a mediocre result looks like versus what a poor result looks like. Clarifying all of that for your people. Again, kind of going back to step 1, how do they know if they're winning or losing if they don't know what path to take?
Yep, and Tim's talked a lot about checklists during this strategy, and I'm going to mess up this name, but particularly Dr. Atul Gawande. He's the guy that's famous for making checklists, particularly in the medical field, obviously. Just incredibly popular. I mean, he took infection
Is he not the one that wrote the checklist manifesto?
I think so.
I think he was.
He took the infection rate from 11% to basically 0% with a simple checklist in a number of years, just by, again, checklisted. Because obviously procedures, surgical procedures, medical procedures can involve multiple steps and sometimes multiple people. By implementing checklists, it took down risks and dangers. So, I mean, from what was it, amputating the wrong leg or something? Like it was all those different things.
Oh my
Remember
God.
that?
I had a procedure, the procedure where they stick the camera down your throat to look at your esophagus. And
Endoscopy?
Endoscopy. I talked to like 12 people and every one of them asked me the same question twice. Everybody asked me, what is your name? What is your date of birth? Why are you here? What do you think the procedure is going to be? And I got asked that by I swear the janitor asked me the same question. And it was like, oh my God, there's no way that they're going to screw this up. I've been asked a dozen times what they're supposed to be doing. And of course, I didn't remember the name. I just said, you're sticking a camera down my throat. And like, yes, got it. So, but yes, I guarantee you those people were just drilled on this process.
Yep. So Tim's basically says that by creating clear, simple, standard operating procedures, you can get anything you want done flawlessly. I don't know, but I do think it definitely helps, especially as we've grown. So moving to strategy 3, automating the right behaviors.
You jumped my strategy. I was supposed to introduce that.
Oh, I apologize. Mark, what's strategy 3?
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you. Way to step on me. Strategy 3.
Throwing bad words.
You're just jumping the gun here. Automate the right behaviors. Automate. In other words, things should just go. It should be natural. It should be second nature. Just like those people that all kept asking me exactly what procedure I was going to be and what my date of birth and my name was. It was automatic with these people. I mean, it was like they probably say this crap in their sleep.
They probably do. Do you want fries with that? That actually happens to fast food workers. But, Mark, I think Tim's talked a lot about just basically calendaring your recurring meetings. So it's just there. And I was like, oh, well, that's obvious, right? Like, just make sure your weekly level 10 meetings are in the calendar. That's not that hard, especially with technology these days. But then I realized it's really the quarterly meetings, the annual meetings that need to get calendared that often don't. Think about it. We get to about October, November, and how many times do we even think and talk about budgeting? But do we have that calendared? We just know we're supposed to
to do it.
But we don't have those types of meetings calendared. Our same page meetings get calendared now. My think time's calendared. All those non-negotiable things for the operation of this firm, for me to do my job, like think time, those things get calendared because otherwise I don't want to have to think about when am I going to do that next. It just needs to be in the calendar. And then Tim's talked about Covey and the big rocks. Do you remember this? You have a base.
Yeah, I actually saw the visual presentation. I actually went to a Covey event, a live Covey event.
You've seen this in person?
I've seen it in person, and I have a big glass vase, and he puts the small rocks in first, and then tries to shove the big rocks in, and it won't fit. And then he dumps it all out, and he does it all over again, and this time it all fits. Blah, blah, blah. I've seen it. I'm sure they made him practice it before they let him get out in public. Like, don't screw this up. This is the core. But this is what we preach. You can't screw up.
How does that relate, Mark, you think, to the automate the right behaviors?
That's a good question.
You put the big things first.
Well, they put the big things first. What are the critical steps in the behavior? What are the critical steps in the process? Every process has a series of critical steps, and you have a series of what are called ancillary steps, which may not be critical to the success of the whole process. It might affect the quality of the process, but the process still works as long as you hit the critical numbers. Again, this was back coding 101. This is from the summer of 1986.
We should do a podcast
when I took coding.
What coding has to do with running
People
a
don't
successful
even
law
know
practice.
what coding is anymore.
No.
AI does it all.
AI does it all, sir.
No.
But we should do a podcast. What coding taught me about running successful law practice.
Exactly. All right, somebody write this down. I don't
think that's a podcast.
Yeah, I think that's an awful podcast.
But that is the point. Exactly. If you're not putting in the big things first, then they're not going to happen. Like I said, make sure your non-negotiables are handled without thought.
We're going to do that at the end of this podcast. Remind me. We're going to let's put a call out to all of our listeners. What do y'all want to hear? What kind of podcast do you want? What are the topics that y'all want to hear about? We haven't ever done that.
All right, we can talk about it.
We'll talk about that. So we'll start putting that as a call out.
In part 3.
Because after a while, we do run out of ideas. So it's only so many
Apparently,
books.
we're scraping ball and barrel with coding and law practice.
About coding, yes.
All right, Mark, though, to wrap up segment 2, strategy 4 is...
The strategy 4 is design the environment. In other words, design the workplace that you want in the way that will increase the opportunity for your people to be most successful. Like you said, put the basket on the right part of the assembly line to help people out. I'm trying to think of how you would equate that to a service industry. Yeah. The proper technology, for one thing. Given some of the simple is when we changed our phone system, everybody went to headsets. So nobody has to use one hand to hold the phone anymore or hold it in the crick of your neck. Just that simple thing right there, designing the right environment. Everybody in our office has 3 screens now, and 2 of the screens are mounted on the cubicle in front of them so they don't take up desk space. That was a simple thought of just designing a better environment for people to work in, those are simple things, but I'm sure there's more complex things, but most of it having to do with a better setup, better access to information, better technology.
Yep, and I have nothing to add there. I do think,
You mean I was so brilliant that I got it all?
absolutely, always.
Absolutely.
So wrapping up habit 3 of engineering the solution, again, not sure I'm completely on board with that, because sometimes you just can't, processes just can't fix a person that's not in the right seat, especially in the service industry. I also am not quite sure how that encourages accountability. I'm sure it does somewhere, though.
This is Marc Whitehead, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast. If we've stirred your juices, hit me up with an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. Remember, Marc is spelled with a C. And get on the Successful Barrister newsletter mailing list. Even better, let's set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about working together, talk shop, or just shooting the breeze.
And we're back. All right, Diana, let's wrap this up. So what are our 5 takeaways from
Tims's book,
Timsy boy.
How Leaders Can Inspire Accountability.
Okay.
So first one is obviously, to me, define accountability for your team. Make sure everyone knows exactly what accountability means to you as a leader, but also what it does and what it does not look like. If people are guessing what accountability, the definition of accountability, or using Webster's version of accountability, you probably haven't made it clear enough for them to encourage the behavior you're looking for.
Number 2 on my list is use the checklist. And in this particular book, in chapter 6, there is basically a system process for creating a checklist. And part of the checklist is probably incorporating some of your firm's core values in it. Like integrity is one of our key core values. So hence, when I give the speech about, mistakes are okay, just don't bury your mistakes, that sort of thing, that becomes built into sort of the fabric of the checklist that you're trying to build. I think this would be a good time. Go over this accountability culture versus blame again. I like how you said it.
Yep, I think it's great. That's a good takeaway there, Mark. My takeaway, the takeaway from 5 would be to take an EQ test to figure out how self-aware you are. I mean, if it's not an EQ test, there are a million personality tests out there, but hit Tim's habit to about just knowing how aware you are, looking in the mirror. You at least got to know if you're not very self-aware. Maybe, what is it? Just 50% of the problem is just acknowledging you have a problem?
Acknowledging you have a problem, yes.
So maybe you just need to acknowledge you may not be self-aware. You may be part of those CEOs that have a lower EQ score, which is okay.
Okay. Number 4 on our list, at every failure, implement an AAR, an after-action report, and incorporate the lessons learned into existing procedures. Like I said, this is how I tell people, if you make a mistake, let us know about it. A lot of times, the quote-unquote after-action report is maybe we didn't train you well enough. Maybe we didn't make the procedure clear enough. Maybe there's a better way in our procedure that we can make sure that this problem doesn't happen again. But anytime you see, as I like to call it, anytime you see a colossal screw-up,
Yep.
look at it. What do you learn from it? What can we fix? How can we fix the process?
Yep, and especially if you've grown a lot like Mark's firm did last year, you will see the systems breaking down. They just break at a certain level of growth. So I think that's cool that you took that one, Mark.
If it ain't broke it.
Well, I don't know about that one,
Yeah,
but let's
okay.
move on to number 5.
Okay.
Our 5th takeaway is to utilize one of the 4 strategies to engineer a problem. So, some of the examples that I liked from the 4 strategies, create a dashboard. Guys, and if you're one of those smaller firms and you don't even have a case management software, you're between case management softwares, a whiteboard. We have them here. They're
I
very
still love
simple.
whiteboards.
They're really
I love
easy
whiteboards.
And doable. Excel sheets are great. Update your checklists, create your automations, utilize NPS scores for that feedback. Any of these items, I think, can definitely increase accountability by just making information more transparent and easy.
All right. So to wrap up, I want you to go back over what we have written here in red here because you say it better than I do. I want you to explain that concept again.
Oh, so are we going back
Right here,
to
right there.
the checklist from the idea from chapter 6.
I think the biggest takeaway I had today is, excuses versus explanations.
Yeah, wasn't that a good
Let's
one?
go over that one more time because I just think that is something that we need to drill home.
Well, so let's use the Marcism here. So the explanations, so the excuses are you're trying to absolve yourself.
Right.
With an explanation, you're trying to use that as a starting point to find a solution, to get better, to make sure, to move forward in the discussion, whatever he says, to a solution to implement. But I think
Right.
the explanation is you're trying to find a path forward so it doesn't happen again. Excuses, okay, well, now I'm not responsible for what happened.
Here, I wave my scepter and I absolve you. I absolve you.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's not happening.
No. So that one is a good takeaway. And it does create a culture of blame rather than a culture of accountability, which is what we're all trying to achieve.
All right, with that, we got to wrap this up.
But you're going to ask our listeners.
Well, I'm getting there.
Oh, sorry.
I'm getting there.
We obviously did not script that.
No,
for our
we did
listeners.
not script this at all. So anyway, so this is why when I say I want to thank our listeners, this is where we're cueing our producer into like the outro music. Like that's his cue right there. Boom,
Yes.
Start the outro music. So he's already started the outro music. So we want to thank all of the listeners of the Successful Barrister podcast, where legal legends are made. I'm Mark.
And I'm Diana.
And together we're the dynamic duo of law. So what we want to do, everybody's homework, is email me, mark@markwhitehead.com. Mark is spelled with a C. And give us your ideas on some topics that you might want to hear from this particular podcast. Or if you just have questions that you want us to cover, any of the above. So we would like to get some feedback. I was very happy over the Christmas break of the feedback we got from the brief Christmas episodes where I offered some free goodies. I got lots of emails from people who want the free goodies. So now it's payback time. We need some ideas on what podcasts you would like to listen to. So anyway, so be sure if you've enjoyed this episode, remember to rate and review us wherever you get their podcast. Hit that forward button and forward this podcast on to your friends so we can get our listenership up. And don't forget about our sponsor, Marc Whitehead and Associates, a national disability law firm. So until next time, let's run a practice, not a prison. Bye.
Bye.